Hi there, I'm Craig Taylor, Solutions Architect at HT2. I've designed and I'm facilitating a MOOC that lasts 12 months throughout 2016. Each month we look at a different topic, a different subject, a different piece of technology that we at HT2 believe deserves more airtime and more people thinking about how they could use it to develop people within their business. We're just reaching the end of April 2016 and we've been looking at virtual reality and augmented reality. So as I committed to do right at the beginning of the year, this is my reflective video from the previous 4 weeks. Sometimes these reflections will be around the design of the MOOC and the way I facilitated it, and other times these reflections will be about the subject itself. This month, I'm actually going to reflect on both of those things. So first of all, from a design perspective, this MOOC is 12 months long, as I previously said. I did have a concern, as did other people, that it would be too long, that people wouldn't stick with it. And I think for some people that's true. But what's really refreshing to see is that as we approach the end of April, as we are 4 months, almost 5 months into the year, there are still people registering right at the beginning of the MOOC and are starting to work their way through. They would never have had an opportunity to do that if we'd ran it over the traditional 4 to 6 week month cycle. So that gives me some sense that for some people, this duration of MOOC has worked for them. It's worked to their advantage. Another design reflection from me is around the questions that we've asked during this level. Most of the times in the MOOC, we present people with some content and then we give them a very direct question to think about, reflect upon and feed back to us on, to respond to. We did something slightly different in this level. In this level, we presented people with some content and then we said to them, we want you to write a question relating to that content. We wanted them to sort of analyse the content more deeply and to think about how they would write a reflective question for other participants. And then when they'd written that question, to look at other people's questions and answer for them. So we were looking at getting lots of questions out of just one object. And that's worked, but it's needed a lot more prodding, cajoling, nudging to get people to do that. People haven't flocked to that type of activity as quickly and as easily as they have done where we just give them a question to answer. So that's been quite interesting to reflect upon and think about. So those are my reflections about the design and facilitation. Let's look at the subjects themselves. First of all, I'd always considered virtual reality to be about safely allowing people to develop motor skills, to allow them to get into the habit of how they would move through a space, how they might interact with something, how they might move something and operate something. And that's certainly very true. There are loads of examples of VR being used in that type of fashion. But there is an object in this MOOC. A guy called Chris Milk is doing a TED Talk and he talks about VR allowing people to design experiences that develop empathy in other people. And I'd never thought about that. I'd never thought about VR immersing people into an environment and it not being about them physically being able to practice something or develop a physical skill, but allowing them to feel as much as you possibly can and experience as much as you possibly can what it's like to be in somebody else's shoes, situation, life, environment, and develop that empathy for them. And he gives a good example whereby they used it to highlight the plight of some people to the United Nations staff. So it really got me thinking about a different use of VR, and that certainly got a few participants thinking differently about VR as well. The final reflection, VR, virtual reality, is getting a lot of headlines, it's getting a lot of news, it's getting a lot of publicity, and rightly so. But I think the longer term winner, I think the thing that we'll perhaps see more often in the future in workplace learning and development, workplace people development, is augmented reality. I think virtual reality is good for taking people away from the day-to-day, putting them in a different environment or a safer environment. But I think for people from a performance support perspective, supporting people in the real world, in their jobs, in their day-to-day environment, I think augmented reality is probably where we'll start to see more workplace applications. It certainly seems to be more accessible, it certainly seems to be cheaper and easier to do than VR. I guess if we look at it on a spectrum, we could use VR for the initial training, for giving people those skills, for giving people that safe experience, and then use augmented reality to support them having that real experience back in the workplace, back in situations that may not be as safe as within a virtual environment. So those are my reflections, both from a design and facilitation perspective, but also from actually just looking a little bit more closely at VR and AR as this level has allowed me to do so. So onwards and upwards, May is almost upon us, which means it's almost time to start thinking about proximity beacons and what value they can add. These were my reflections from April 2016 on VR and AR. Thanks for watching.